This makes 2025 one of the worst wildfire years on record. According to the European Forest Fire Information System, at least 111 fires have burnt nearly 24,500 hectares. That's about 94 square miles of land scorched in just over 3 months.
Yeah, wildfire is a big emerging risk in the UK. It's not traditionally something we've associated with our landscape. We've seen actually the biggest burned area on record already this year.
The smoke rolled in quietly at first. It drifted across the green hills and through the old stone valleys of Britain, those rolling countryside landscapes etched into postcards, novels, and children's storybooks.
This year, wildfires are already breaking records in the UK. We've seen over 100 more wildfires than the previous record set in 2022. And we've already surpassed the amount of burned area, and it's only April. Research showed that those 2022 wildfires were made 6 times more likely because of human-caused climate change. And this year, while many of us were enjoying the sunniest March on record, myself included, this led to dangerously dry conditions which are a breeding ground for wildfire spread. As you can see, the whole of the mainland UK had much drier conditions than you would usually expect. This is shown by the whole country being in brown. Let's be clear though, climate change does not cause wildfires. They're usually caused by humans, and the majority of the time are accidental, but sometimes intentional.
But this wasn't some painter's fog. This was something darker, angrier. The unmistakable sting of burning earth, the smell of scorched grass, of trees cracked open by heat, of nature collapsing under a sky that had turned against it. This was the United Kingdom, in flames. And not just one region, not just one accident, not a freak event tucked into the back pages of a newspaper. No, this was a national eruption.
UK wildfires increase amid heat wave. The UK experiences a surge in wildfires due to the hottest start to May on record, raising concerns about climate change. Britain's on fire, literally. And yet, some still think climate change is just hot air. Maybe the flames will convince them.
Over 439 wildfires burning from south to north, igniting across hills, moors, forests, and urban greenbelts. Each one a flashing red wound on the map. Each one a warning. And what triggered it all? May, not July, not August. May, the soft, slow month when Britain typically yawns awake from spring, when the land is still dewy, the air still shy. But not this year. This May roared in with fire in its breath, the hottest start to May ever recorded in UK history. Temperatures surged past seasonal norms, humidity dropped, rain disappeared. And then the land cracked open. The fires followed. It wasn't just heat, it was the speed, the unpredictability. Fields that had never burned before. Burning. Roads that once felt safe, now choked in smoke. People walking their dogs in what they thought was countryside peace, suddenly engulfed by walls of flame, advancing faster than they could run. This is not normal. This is not seasonal. This is not something Britain has ever been built to endure, because the UK isn't California. It isn't Australia. Its infrastructure, its emergency services, its public psychology, all were built on the assumption of temperate weather, manageable seasons, reliable patterns. But the planet doesn't care about assumptions anymore. The planet is done whispering. It's screaming now. And this month, it screamed in fire. Firefighters have described the scenes as apocalyptic. In county after county, they faced infernos they were never trained to fight. Walls of heat 30 feet high, moving with the wind, devouring everything. More than 2,800 hectares of land have already been consumed, and counting. That's ancient woodland, wildlife habitat, farmland, and in many cases, people's homes. Because fire doesn't respect property lines. It doesn't care about fences or foundations. Once it's loose, it swallows everything. And here's what makes this different, what makes it terrifying. There was no lightning, no arsonist, no spark of war. This was spontaneous combustion on a national scale. Dry air, parched earth, heat that settled into the soil like a curse. Scientists are calling it fire weather, a phrase that didn't exist in British meteorology until just a few years ago. Now it's becoming the norm. Heat waves that once happened every few decades are now happening every year. Rainfall patterns are shattering. Spring is vanishing into summer. Autumn is drying into winter. And the earth beneath our feet, the very thing we trusted to hold us up, is turning to tinder. But this isn't just an environmental crisis. It's an emotional one. Because Britain is burning, and the people aren't ready. Not just physically, psychologically. For generations, the British landscape has been a symbol of endurance, of misty hills, rain-soaked parks, gardens that bloom and fade and bloom again. The seasons were part of the national character, predictable, gentle, stable. But the land is betraying those myths now. And the betrayal is personal. Families who've lived in the same home for 60 years are being told to evacuate. Children are growing up with smoke on the horizon. Elderly residents are collapsing from heat stroke in towns where fans used to be optional. This isn't climate change anymore, it's climate collapse. Happening in real time. On your doorstep. And yet the system, the politicians, the developers, the denial machines, still speak in polite half measures. They call this unexpected, unprecedented, as if they weren't warned. As if the scientists hadn't been screaming for 40 years. As if the IPCC reports didn't predict this exact scenario. Rising global temperatures, drier landscapes, and climate zones shifting northward, bringing fire where there was once fog. But those warnings were buried, dismissed, sacrificed on the altar of profit and political expedience. And now it's not theory, it's ash. The real tragedy is this: we haven't even reached peak fire season. It's only May. The ground hasn't seen real rain in weeks. The grass is brittle, the winds are high, and climate models are forecasting an even hotter June and July, with prolonged drought and heat waves looming. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new normal, a terrifying one. The air is thick with more than smoke. It's thick with questions. How do you protect a country that was never built for fire? How do you evacuate hundreds of homes in small towns with one fire engine? How do you shelter a population that still believes climate change is someone else's problem, something happening over there? And perhaps the hardest question of all, what happens to identity when the land changes? When the rolling hills become fire traps? When the rivers dry into cracked scars? When the British countryside, the poetic, pastoral, Jane Austen England, becomes a furnace? Because this isn't just about Britain. This is the front edge of a global story. Southern Europe is next. Then the Alps. Then the Arctic Circle. The fires don't recognize national borders, and neither does the climate breakdown fueling them. If the UK, with all its resources, infrastructure, and global clout, can't protect its land from burning in May, then what hope is there for the rest of us? But even now, there's a fight to be had. Not just against the fires, but against the systems that let it come to this. Against the fossil fuel giants still lobbying behind closed doors. Against the governments that water down climate policy for a few votes. Against the media that still covers wildfires like natural disasters, not the man-made catastrophes they truly are, because the truth is brutal. This is the fire they warned us about, and it's just getting started.